And Culture Club are returning to Australia in the new year, and earlier this week I chatted to Boy George all about it. The 80s, summed up by fluoro, big hair, ghetto blasters, me, and maybe most recognisable, Boy George. Bringing androgyny to the mainstream, Boy George backed up his entirely original look with some seriously good music. He was the gender-bending lead singer of Culture Club, who became the first band since the Beatles to have 3 top 10 hits from a debut album in America, and went on to sell 30 million records. After the demise of the group in 1986, George went solo and has lived in the headlines ever since, with his very public addiction to drugs, his sexuality, and his run-ins with the law. But as everything old is new again, Boy George is on the comeback trail, and with Culture Club following him, they're bringing the sounds of the 80s down under. First things first, what do I call you? Is it Boy George, just George, Boy? What should I officially use?
George is fine, Boy. In America, people call me Mr. Boy, which is always very amusing.
You really committed to a look very early, and it was bold. Were there a lot of people telling you, look, it's just too out there?
I love that term, bold. He's so bold. That's how I looked, you know. If anything, I kind of toned down my look when the band got together. And also, once we sort of got successful, you know, nobody really told us what to do. When I was 20 years old, I wanted everyone to love me. I really thought that was a possibility. And I think, you know, with the kind of, you know, the growth of things like social networking and the internet, I have discovered that there are some people out there who really don't like me. And I kind of can live with that now, you know, because I think anyone who dislikes you that hasn't actually met you is pretty nuts, you know.
Now, 30 years on for you guys, did you ever think when you first got together that you'd still be making music together?
No way. You never really thought beyond kind of what was happening at the time, you know. Yeah, so it is quite amazing to even think that, you know, you can still do this after so long.
How different is it now to back then?
Well, we try to be a bit more respectful towards each other. I think being in a band is a bit like being in a dysfunctional family, and we just try to kind of communicate rather than sort of abuse each other. You know, I think we try to kind of be a little bit more polite, and I think that's the way forward, really.
There's obviously still a lot of excitement for 80s music. Why do you think that is? And do you think the 80s were even as good as people remember?
I think they were, but I think at the time, I remember nobody seemed to like the 80s. You know, it's one of those weird things that sometimes you need a bit of a distance from a decade to actually appreciate what it was. But I do remember somebody, I think it might have been Annie Lennox or someone, saying it was really the last decade where bands dressed themselves and wrote their own songs.
It was a quick rise to fame for Boy George, and there have been highs, lows, and valuable lessons learned.
This kind of business does kind of keep you in infancy, you know, because you get famous. Well, I got famous very early and very quickly, and you kind of lose control of your life, and you kind of lose the need to be responsible. I don't know whether you get older and wiser just because you get older. I think you have to kind of make an effort to change.
After a run-in with the law in 2006, Boy George reported for community service on the streets of New York and took it all in his stride.
Well, you know, when you put yourself in a situation, you can't really blame other people. And I think it's very important, whatever you do, you know, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I think to kind of take ownership of that is the only thing you can do. And actually, you know, people in New York were really sweet to me. You know, people was honking their horns and coming out of manholes and, you know, cheering me on. So there was 2 sides of it. You know, people, I think in New York, you know, people felt that, you know, I'd gone back and I was kind of paying for what I'd done. And so there was a sense of kind of respect from people. And I just got on with it. You know, I knew what I had to do, and, you know, I'm good with a broom, you know.
Back and better than ever, Culture Club are heading to our shores for a New Year's Eve concert.
A few months ago, I was kind of working out, you know, because obviously I DJ and stuff, so I was working out, you know, where I was going to go for New Year, and the call came in to come to Australia, and it was a bit of a no-brainer, you know. Jamiroquai, Pet Shop Boys, Sydney Harbour. So we're very excited about coming, and it's going to be a great show.
And have you got a hat picked out for the gig yet, or are you going to bring a choice of hats and then pick one?
Yeah, it depends on the kind of heat. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do about that, but I'll try and pull something, you know, exciting. Maybe something with corks, you know, glittery corks.
Well, we're very excited that you're coming to Australia for New Year's Eve. Boy George, thank you very much for chatting to us.
Sound.
Yeah.
Jamiroquai, Boy George.
And Pet Shop Boys as well. Huge concert. All the details for the New Year's Eve gig are on our website.
And you can actually see the full interview that Charlie had with Boy George, Mr. Boy, whatever
Boy.
you want to call him, on our website. And it was so good, in fact, that Boy George actually tweeted after the interview and he thought you were charming, Charlie.
Well, it was a charming competition. He was very impressive to talk to. He was great.
We've got to take a break. We'll be back to wrap it all up after